everybody, David Fogel back with you, CEO of the Symphonina Foundation. We got another Symphonina Foundation podcast. We're busy this week with podcasts. We opened the week with Melissa Manchester. It was great. And talked with James Adler. And now we have cellist Andrea Soltani from Oklahoma City. Andrea, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you, David. How are you doing?
Well, busy. Busy, but it's a nice day here in San Diego. We're doing great and keeping things rolling for the Symphonina Foundation. And I wanted to ask you really specifically about your approach to teaching cello. You're running the Soltani Music School with your husband, who
Yes,
also teaches violin, viola, and piano, if I remember correctly, while you
that's
teach
correct.
cello.
Yes.
But you started on cello early, and you're not that old, so you must be able to. Yeah, I know. So you must be able to relate to what your students, if they're. I know we mentioned before we got started, if I maybe focus mainly on kids, but in the holiday time, it would be from
Yeah.
kids from 1 to 92. So kids of all ages.
Yes.
So what is your approach to teaching cello?
Yeah. So I've been teaching cello for about 20 years. And through that, I've learned so much about, I guess I should say that everybody learns differently, and progress for everyone, for each individual person, can mean something different. Not everybody's goals are the same, and not everybody's, musical background is the same. And so my mission as a teacher is to quickly identify what each of my students needs from me. And I always tell them, they'll say, "Oh, I didn't practice, and so I don't want to waste your time." And I say, "Nope, you're not wasting my time. This is your time, and I'm here to help you with whatever you need." And so my husband and I, we're both classically trained musicians, and I attended the University of Central Oklahoma here in Edmond, Oklahoma, and my husband attended Oklahoma City University in Oklahoma City. And so we both came from this really rich, wonderful background of, we had some amazing teachers, world-renowned teachers that we, revere and admire a lot. But the truth of the matter is, sometimes in classical music education, it can feel a little bit intimidating. When a kid comes in and they're supposed to practice, or they're not sure, it can be, people get very nervous in their lessons. And I found, interestingly enough, that adult students get even more nervous than kids.
Hmm.
Even if they practice, they come in and they're just shaking in their boots. So our goal is to really make sure that everybody feels like, regardless of their age, regardless of their abilities or even their learning differences, that they can play an instrument. They can learn their dream instrument. If I have adults tell me all the time, "Oh, I've always dreamed of playing the cello," and I say, "You can, and I'll teach you." And I've had a lot of students with, especially as we get older and our bodies become less flexible and less responsive to what we want them to do, right? Our muscles become less responsive. So adult students, they understand with complete proficiency what you're asking them to do intellectually. They're like, they got it, right? But then they try to make their muscles do it, and it can be very frustrating. So I also try to approach every student with some different adaptations that I can make in my back pocket, right? And I always say, I'm gonna play you a little clip, and I play them a clip of, like, an audio clip of Django Reinhardt playing the guitar. And then I said, "What did you think about it?" It was amazing. And I said, "Okay, well, that was Django Reinhardt, and he had a thumb and two fingers. And so if he can play the guitar, you've got five fingers, you can play the cello. We're going to make it work." So I think that's an important kind of approach to all music education, but especially for adult learners, or people who might be doing it as a hobby, to recognize their personal goals, which, they're not going to be a concert cellist. They're not going for Carnegie Hall, right? They're not going to be auditioning for the Philharmonic. They want to play music because they love music, and it's healing, right? And it can be a beautiful part of your creative expression. It can be, yeah, it can just be healing in so many ways, right? And so that's what I try to establish very quickly and kind of go from there.
So what is the ideal age? Probably no one right answer to this, but having gone through a lot of teaching now, you probably have some instinct for it anyway, or intuition. What is the ideal age for someone to start playing the cello?
Yeah, so I'd say, generally speaking, it depends a little bit on the child's emotional maturity and readiness, and how connected they are to their body, right? And how long they can kind of focus Typically you start with a 30-minute lesson. So if you have a child who's especially energetic and maybe they're not quite ready to sit still for 30 minutes, we want to make things interactive, but that can be a little bit, that's one marker of readiness. But I would say somewhere between the ages of 6 and 9, depending on the child. I've also found, and you may know this already, I don't know if I have any sources to back this up, but in my personal teaching experience, it doesn't matter how old the person is. They can be 6, they can be 66. If they have had even 1 year of piano lessons, they have a much better foundational understanding of relativity in music, right? They have a much easier time learning how to read music. They have a much easier time translating like the spatial, I guess I'm trying to say like the spatial elements of playing the piano, right? So when you have all 5 fingers and you say, okay, this is 1, 2, 3, and from 1 to 3, that's a third, and you have white keys and black keys, and it gives you this really like this laid out visual of how notes are related to one another. When somebody has even just a little bit of piano, whether they were a child or whatever, it helps them immensely. And so a lot of times when I have students come to me who have a really little one who's wanting to start, I say, yeah, let's start them. But if they don't feel quite ready, maybe we could try a semester of piano just to get them started, because then they can go on and have a real advantage to learn any instrument they want, especially if it's a fretless instrument.
Yeah, I think that was key in my own musical upbringing too, because I started learning piano when I was 5. And then my dad played piano, saxophone, clarinet, flute, vibraphone, rumored to play bassoon. I never saw him play bassoon, but I believe it. So, but getting me started on piano first and then going to sax and then later guitar made it much easier because as you said, you have everything in front of you and lower is to the left and higher is to the, and you can see the octaves there in front of you. And all the, the C's look the same, the D's look the same pretty much. Right. Correct. So it's not the same on a saxophone. It's probably not the same on your cello either. No. So yeah. And knowing where to put your fingers, because if you hit this key, you hit it. Right. Now you could hit it badly, but you still where the key is. But for the 4 months that I took violin, it's you don't know. You don't know and where that cello, note is.
Sitting in it, so it's a vertically held instrument, right? And so a lot of times I'm looking at my student and I'm pointing down and I'm saying higher. No, that's higher.
Nice. Right.
Pointing down, and they're like, and they kind of like freeze, and I'm like, no, I'm sorry. I want to remind you on the cello, as we move higher in pitch, we actually physically move lower to the ground, right? So very simple things like that can be a little disorienting as a beginner, but yeah. So piano is a huge advantage, I think, to anyone who is interested in learning music or wanting to put their child into music lessons. It's never a bad idea to start with piano.
And I'm guessing that during COVID, you did a lot of online education and things like that because everybody had to adjust to doing whatever they do. But I'm also guessing that there's nothing that beats being in person.
That's correct. Yeah. I mean, we have all the same challenges teaching music online as we have having meetings and phone calls online, right? Like just the lag is a huge issue. The audio is a huge issue. You're watching them play something and the audio isn't matching up. So it was really important to just kind of remain calm, try to be intuitive, be a little more creative with the assignments, and it wasn't a situation where you could play along with your student, which is really unfortunate. So the first thing that people really mentioned when they came back to lessons was like how great it was to be able to just play like a simple little duet, or to have me play a drone while they play a scale, or just to have that physical aspect of, when you put 2 instruments together and you're creating those sound waves together, there's something really magical about it, right? That you don't get whenever you're just at home by yourself, or you're hearing it through a screen. It's not the same. That goes for a symphony like you're doing, or for a music lesson. It's just not the same.
Yeah, it's true. How many students do you have in your music school currently?
Yeah, we have just about 200 students currently, and we just moved over to this building. We purchased a 1905 craftsman home in Downtown Edmond, which is kind of our historical district of our city. And we completely renovated the entire thing. So we went from having 2 teaching spaces at our home studio that we had created to having 6 teaching spaces. And we just opened on June 1st. We've got 11 teachers currently. And what's amazing is we've seen a ton of growth in the last 2 months. And summer is usually our slow time. And so we're looking ahead to the fall semester and looking to hire a couple more teachers probably to help us, those incoming students that they'll go to school in the first couple weeks and they'll pick an instrument and then they'll reach out to get lessons. So we're excited for the growth that we have on the horizon. One special thing about our school is that with my history, I'm a big history buff. And of course I love classical music. It's kind of my whole, world. I also, my mom is an art historian and she gave me this real passion for art history. So I love art and art history. So when we got this school, I thought, okay, what would be really neat is if we sort of made this like a living history museum. I was homeschooled and my parents were amazing at taking us along with them to travel whenever we had the opportunity. And so I spent a lot of time growing up at like these living history museums, things like Colonial Williamsburg and Jamestown and, things like that. And so, and then even as a young adult, I went to Europe and you go to, just to see something like Versailles is amazing. It's like, you can study it. You can watch videos, you can look at pictures, but there's really nothing like just standing there in that place, right? Or you go to like a composer's home or an artist's home, and it's just like you're just kind of transported back into a different time.
Absolutely.
So I thought, okay, well, how could we make this really unique? Like we can do whatever we want with these spaces. We know we're going to renovate them. We're going to paint. We're going to do all that work. We're going to put up curtains and light fixtures anyway. So how can we make this really unique? And so we had the idea to make each space themed after a different composer. So essentially what I wanted to do was, and I did all my research on the interior design, on the history of the architecture, the furniture, the art, the colors even. And I named each room after a different composer. So we start, the earliest composer we have is Bach, and you walk in and everything, there's Baroque art all over the walls. We use these really rich kind of like royal type colors, like gold and kind of a dark plum color on the walls. And so every room is just saturated in color, and it kind of just, I set up these little, what I call vignettes, like a little candlestick on a table with some books and a teacup sitting there, or like maybe somebody just had a little cup of tea. Or so we've got the Bach room, we've got Mozart, fun little interactive things there. But we've got Mozart's wig and Mozart's coat sitting on a rack, and so kids can come in and kind of dress up as Mozart and have a little fun thing to do. Yeah, and then where I'm sitting right now is the Beethoven room. It's, I kind of just themed it after like the neoclassical kind of inspired romanticism. And I have a little vignette in here, which is Beethoven's desk. So he's got crumpled up papers and manuscripts that have been scribbled. We've got reproductions of music manuscripts. We've got candlesticks and, an inkwell and a quill sitting there. So it looks almost like Beethoven just left his messy desk, like he was just here. Yeah, and then we also have the Debussy room, which is French Impressionism. We've got Tchaikovsky.
My goodness, that's great.
Yeah.
Makes me want to fly there and take some cello lessons.
I would love for you to come on. And then finally we have the Beatles room, which is really, more contemporary, of course, but it's completely 70s. I always joke that I'm a millennial and I put paneling up. I didn't take it down. I put wood paneling up on the walls. And the contractor said, so do you want to paint it, right? And I said, no. I want wood paneling, like the kind that you're always taking down or trying to cover up. That's what I want in there. And so you go in there and you feel like you're in a mid-century modern. I want it to feel like my grandparents' living room, basically.
Yeah.
So each room has its own unique aesthetic, and I just wanted to bring all of my talents. So I'm a photographer. I've done a lot of graphic design. Of course, I love music. I have this rich education from my mother, from homeschooling, that just gave me a passion for history and art and architecture. And I really felt like I could bring all those together into making this a really special space for kids. So of course we want to focus on them playing music, but I wanted them to also feel inspired and kind of have a little bit of a sense of like, oh yeah, I kind of know what Beethoven's about. Like, even if they don't know, when Beethoven was born or when he died, so what? They have kind of an aesthetic idea of a little bit about his life, about where he was from and the colors that he might have seen and things like that. So yeah, so that's what I think kind of sets our music school apart. We just want it to be a really inspiring space for kids and adults alike.
Yeah, and it sounds like it definitely is. And it sounds like you're well on your way. Is it something that you think you're going to be doing 10 years, 20 years into the future?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's our hope, is that this can be kind of a beacon in the community. We have actually a lot of other amazing music teachers and music studios in Oklahoma City and in Edmond. But I do think that our school is unique in that way. And Edmond is very like a family, a community of families. So, we have a lot of kids who are needing music lessons. And so we're hoping that we can that we're here for the long haul and we can serve our community well.
Yeah, it's if I could say, it's heartwarming to hear that in the heartland of America, symphony music and classical music is doing great. And for you to have 200 students, it's just awesome. I mean, congratulations to you. It doesn't happen overnight. And you don't keep them without it being a reason for keeping them, right? And obviously, from what you just described, there's many reasons, right? Why you are keeping them. It's just awesome. And of course, that you have such a great network of other teachers there too, as well, which is super important because not every teacher is going to match up with every student. And you have to find out as early on, I'm sure, as you do, like, how's it going? And is there, if it's not going that great, then maybe there's another path forward for you. So, Andrea, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
I'd say probably through social media. You can find us on Soltani Music School. We're on Instagram and on Facebook. You can also check out our website, which is soltanimusic.com. Especially if you're local and you're interested in maybe taking some lessons or something, that would be a good way to get in touch with us. Yeah.
I think that's great. And of course, the mission of the Symphonina Foundation is to spread the joy of symphonic music to young audiences around the world. And you're doing that. Absolutely. And also, I would say not just to young audiences, not just kids, but their parents and their grandparents.
Yes.
And maybe the great grandparents, because we could also use a dose of that joy. And I thank you for bringing it. If there's anything else we can do to be of help to you at the Symphonina Foundation, just let us know. We'll be happy to help.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're gonna listen to some more of you playing the cello on the way out here. And we wish you the best for the rest of the day.
Thank you so much, David.